question I get asked a lot is, what kind of equipment do you use? What do you use on your video shoots? And so in this video, I want to talk about one of the cameras that we use quite often. We use several others. I will talk about them. Sometimes they're Sony, sometimes they're not, but I would say most cases when we do our shoots, we're working with Sony cameras. And the reason why, it just helps our workflow to be that much more efficient, because we're not having to try and match up all kind of different cameras whenever we're editing in post. So it's one of the important things that we use. It's not that necessarily Sony is great and everything else is not. There's lots of great cameras that are out there. I'm mainly going to be talking about this one in this video, the reasons why we like to use it quite a bit. Although we use other ones, it's very versatile. It works really well for our purposes. So this is the Sony FX30. It's in the cinema camera line for Sony. Now you can buy Sony's as least expensive as probably, I guess, about $400 or $500, all the way up to $50,000 for a Sony camera. So there's a wide range of price points you can get within the Sony ecosystem. This kind of squares you right in that $1,500 to $2,000 range, which for a cinema level camera is actually a really good price. So at the price point, you're getting a lot for the money. And let me share with you what comes with the camera. I'm opening it right out of the box for you so you can see what you get and what you're going to get, what you need to get after you purchase the camera. So it's going to come with a charging cable. This has on one end the USB-A charging cable that you would plug in. On the other end is a USB-C that goes into the camera. You don't have to use this charging cable in order to charge the camera. I've used several USB-C cords. Sometimes if I'm in a pinch, I may plug it up to a battery charger. I may plug it up to my laptop. I can plug it into another wall charger that I have. It's very versatile, and it will charge your battery inside the camera. So you actually don't even need an external charger. I do use an external charger. In fact, I have a Watson. It's right here to my right here, and it will charge 2 batteries at a time. It's quick, it's efficient. I like to use that. I also have another one I carry with me that I can also charge batteries quicker with. And I like to have several different batteries when I'm on set filming. So I'm going to pull out the manuals. Of course, you'd expect to have manuals in there. And we're going to open up the main section, and this is where we're going to have the camera here. So there's the camera. I'm about to pull that in just a moment. The rest is just a lot of air. Not a lot there, but I do have this, which this is very useful to have. And that's the wall charger and the Sony battery. I'll pull those out in just a second. So that's really essentially what's here. Not real complicated. You got the camera here. This is a Sony FX30. This is the same size, basically the same size as the Sony FX3. Same size camera. And then also the battery. So there's the battery. It's important that you use the Sony batteries. You can buy replacement batteries. One of the advantages of having the Sony batteries is if you don't use the batteries that come with it, or the Sony batteries, you won't be able to tell how much battery power you have left. The indicator does not work if you have it updated to the latest update. So it really makes some of these other batteries less useful. I do have what's called a dummy battery. I can plug that in and it will give constant power. As long as I keep it powered up, it'll stay on. So I'm not worried about the battery meter working on that. But when it comes to these type of batteries, it's only going to work if you have the actual Sony batteries. You can say, hey, that's just another way for them to make money. Maybe it is. But also they do have high quality batteries. They tend to work a long time. They tend to have good charge. So I don't mind buying the actual Sony batteries. I have several of them. This is the wall charger. And so as you would expect, it has the USB-A connection on the end, which I showed you earlier, the cord that goes with it, and the other part goes into the camera. When you're charging up the camera, you're going to charge it up right here. And so there's a USB-C opening there. There's also here, additionally, you do have a micro USB option there that can also be used for charging. Another thing that we use quite a bit is having the mic hookups on the side. You want to make sure you have that. That mic hookup on the side allows you in the red to plug in a very high quality microphone, so you're not having to use the microphone that's internal to the camera. Rarely will you use that. You want to use an external mic. And then the other plug you see there is for the headphones. Another thing that's really important about this camera, it's especially if you're doing a lot of the work that I'm doing, it helps to have a monitor to kind of see a bigger screen than what comes with it. And so I use this quite a bit. I use this HDMI connection on the side there. So those are the main compartments on the side that you're going to use. On the other side, another thing that's very important about this camera, a lot of other cameras don't have it, especially if you're talking about lower price cameras, it's going to be the dual card slots. So this has the dual card slots, so you're able to have a backup. You can either record simultaneously on both of the cards, or you can have them run in succession. So if you've got, let's say, two 256 gigabyte cards, you can plug 2 of them in there and basically have 512 gigabytes. It allows you to extend and have more space. Another thing that you can do is you can separate one for media or video, and the other one is for pictures. You can separate it that way. So you got a few different options as far as storage is concerned. This has worked out extremely well for me. I've never had a card actually fail on me. I know I'm due for one at some point, but the simultaneous recording does allow you to have a backup. So if you're recording, you're going to make sure that you at least have a backup of what you just recorded. Another option you can also use is you can use a second one for proxy recording. So let's say you want to record something in high definitions, say it's in 4K, and you're doing a very high quality 4K recording, but it's going to be a bear to edit on the post. And so what you may want to do is use a proxy. That's a smaller version of the same file that's easier for you to use on a computer that maybe doesn't have enough memory or enough processor speed to work with those larger files. So that's another option you have that traditionally just was available only in much more expensive cameras. At the very top here, you have what's called a hot shoe. This hot shoe will allow you to plug, for example, a Sony shotgun mic right into the top here because it is powered. So that's also important. I do use that from time to time because I do have a Sony portable, the smaller shotgun microphone. There are some plugs on the very top you can see, openings where you can put different devices there and screw them in with the small, there's three holes there to use. Another thing I really like about this camera is that I can do some versatility when it comes to the screen. So I can flip it out, I can turn it different ways. So if I've got the camera really low, I can have it where I can look at it down, or if I have it really high, I can turn it this way, and it just gives me a lot more flexibility. This is not really an issue for me because it does have internal fans, but sometimes opening this up can help the camera run a little bit cooler. But what you will find on this camera, it runs extremely well in hot climates because it does have an internal fan. You can see the exhaust there on the side there for the external fan. It works really great. I can't say enough good things about that. I've never had any issues with this camera overheating, where I have had that issue with several other cameras in the Sony line, such as the A6700, which is a fairly new camera. It's a newer camera than this one. I've had issues with this Sony ZV-E10. Those overheat. And especially if you're recording in 4K, if you're doing like a podcast, and don't even get me started if you're doing it outside. You're talking about not being able to record very long at all. So I would definitely suggest, if you're going to record long periods and you're going to be recording in 4K, you're going to want to have a camera with an internal fan. So that's very important. Some other things about this camera I like is the EMount. This has the EMount, which is for the Sony mirrorless camera mounts, and that gives you a wide versatility of lenses. You got a lot of lenses that are available. You can get full frame lenses, you can get crop sensor lenses. It doesn't matter what kind, as long as it's the E-mount, you can fit it on this camera and use it. Another advantage I like about this camera, and it's even an advantage over the more expensive Sony cameras, is that you're able to buy lenses at a much lower cost. So even though you can use full frame lenses on this camera, you can actually buy crop sensor lenses at a much lower cost, so you can have more versatility. So in my bag, when I come on site and I'm about to film, I've got a lot of different options that would cost me sometimes twice as much if I were working with full frame lenses. And that's important to have that kind of versatility there. So this sensor, it does great. It's a great sensor. It puts out a really nice image. Now, I will give you one thing that is a limitation of this camera. It's not a full frame sensor, so with that, it may not do as well in low light. It does pretty good, but when you compare it with a full frame sensor, it does not do as well in low light. So if you're dealing with an extremely low light situation, like if you record a lot at night, this is still going to do very well. It's probably going to do better than a lot of cameras that are out there, but it won't do as well as a full frame sensor camera like an FX3, FX6, FX9. Those are going to do a little better because they have the full frame. They also can go at a much higher ISO. This one has a base ISO of 800 up to 2500. Whereas if you're running, let's say, an FX6, you have up to 112,000 ISO. So you have a much broader range. It can do much better in low light. That is probably the only limitation that I have noticed on this camera. Everything else, I don't see any limitations. And I'll tell you some advantages to this camera over some of the other cameras that are out there. For instance, the FX6, generally when you're recording in 4K, you're going to have to use what's called the MXF format. And if you're editing, that is a bear to edit. It's very, very bulky file. It has it takes up a lot of space. So when it comes to editing, it's not very friendly to those who are editing. And so therefore, the editors that I work with, as well as myself, when I'm editing, I prefer to edit MP4 files, which is what this produces. I can record in 4K, very high quality, but in MP4 format. Another thing I'll say about this camera that I really like, it's very versatile in terms of frame rate. So if I want to film something that's really fast action, even as high as 120 frames per second, I can do that with this camera even at 4K, which is amazing. So if I want to record that and then slow that footage down, I'm easily able to do that. Now typically what I'll do with some of the things that I usually shoot, I'll record at 4K 60 frames per second, and then I have the flexibility to knock it all the way down to 50% speed and still get full quality at 30 frames per second. So that seemed to work pretty well for what I do, because I don't do a whole lot of sports action, and when I do sports action, typically the 4K running at 60 frames does just fine. It does perfect for what I need. Those are some of the basics that I like about this camera. So it's super easy if you're not as familiar with changing out the lenses. It's just as easy as a 16mm Sigma. Very good lens. Love this lens. It has a nice sharp image that comes out of it. It'll run you between $370 to $400. It's worth every penny. I've used this on probably the majority of the shoots that I've worked on. So see here, it just fits nicely on this particular camera. Super high quality, sharp lens. I would definitely recommend this lens. Another thing I've done with this lens too is, you notice it has this extra ring around it. I use that for a matte box. I have a small rig matte box I use this with, and so it has versatility when it comes to filming outside, or if it's a very high bright lights I'm dealing with and I want to get the full capabilities of the camera. I can use the matte box and really get that nice sharp image, because this particular lens is at 1.4, which is great, super sharp. So I really like this lens. Some of the things I want to point about this camera, when you look at just the way it's built, it has a nice weight to it. It's nice and heavy. And then whenever you put a cage on it and give it a little bit more weight, it's even that much easier to handle. This camera is also really easy to handle on a lot of gimbals that are out there. So it's very versatile in that way. I've got 2 gimbals. It fits them perfectly. There's no issues with it being too heavy. So that's one of the things you run into with some of the other cameras, like for instance an FX6. It's a great camera, but it's very heavy and it's going to be difficult to run on a gimbal. You're going to have a pretty hefty gimbal to be able to hold up that FX6. This FX30 and the FX3 will be much easier to handle. Well, I don't want this video to go too long. I'd love to hear in the comments what has been your experience with using the FX30 or the FX3. One of the things I saw not too long ago in an interview was they actually filmed pretty much most of the entire film, The Creator. That film was mostly done in using the FX3. So that's a great camera also. Same body size, similar camera. The difference is the FX3 is a full frame and this is a crop sensor, has a smaller sensor in there. But other than that, they're very similar. Similar in size, similar in versatility and use. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'd love to hear if you'd like me to talk more about some of the other equipment that I use. I know some of the people are curious about what kind of equipment that we're using, so feel free to let me know. I can also give you some comparisons as well, but thank you for watching.